Christian history is full of magnificent manuscripts, and we've introduced a couple of them on this channel, but today we're going to take a look at a largely unknown manuscript that is incredibly unusual. It is written on purple parchment in golden ink. In a world full of ancient texts, parchments, and manuscripts, there are many very famous works. We have looked on this channel at the magnificent Book of Kells, and we have seen pages from the incredible Lindisfarne Gospels. Both of these works are incredibly well known and from the Western world, and today we're going to take a look at a work that is almost entirely unknown and comes from the East. What we're looking at today is a book of the Gospels written on purple parchment. Purple parchment is not a material that was used very often in the ancient world. It's incredibly expensive, hard to get a hold of, and hard to preserve. Over the centuries, much of the color of these pages has been lost, but this has allowed the letters to stand forth even more because they were written in gold. Centuries before the creation of the one we're looking at today, St. Jerome actually complained about gospel books being written in gold on purple parchments because he didn't like the idea of people making pretty copies of the Gospels that were inaccurate and not being read. They were made more as status symbols. And Jerome's critique of these books is a reminder to us to actually read the Bibles we have in our homes and not just collect them. The manuscript we're looking at today is written in golden ink on purple pages and contains the books of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. When it was written in the 9th century, the Book of Kells was only a few decades old and separated from this work by an entire continent. But the age of this book and the materials used for this book are not the most interesting things about it. This book is believed to have been owned by, and likely even handwritten by, a saint, the Byzantine Empress Theodora II herself. This is the personal copy of the Gospels owned by an incredibly unique and powerful woman of the Byzantine Empire. She has already appeared on this show before, being mentioned briefly in our episode on St. Cassia the hymnographer, of whom Theodora was a contemporary. Theodora was married to the Byzantine Emperor Theophilus, under whose reign Christianity was suffering with the tyranny of the iconoclastic heresy. This heresy of iconoclasm was destroying beautiful sacred images across the empire and distorting the ancient Christian view of the incarnation of Jesus Christ. Amidst the wholesale destruction of beauty across the world, several saints stood up for the defense of images. They became known as iconodules, and among them people like Cassia and other saints were persecuted, put into jail, tortured, and banished. Theophilus was running a lot of these things. He ran a campaign of iconoclasm, and he searched everywhere for the iconodules, but failed to notice the one that was right beside him, his own wife. Theodora came from a devout Christian family that loved the beauty of iconography. Theodora's mother, Theoctista, after the death of her husband, became a nun, and Theodora would regularly visit her at the monastery with her daughters. Her youngest daughter, while playing with her father the emperor, once accidentally let slip that her grandmother was hiding icons, and the emperor instantly banned his wife and his children from ever visiting her again, and he probably thought that this would be the end of it. What he did not realize is that Theodora herself had several icons hidden and protected and was ministering to the persecuted iconodules of the empire. When Theophilus suddenly died, his son and heir was not yet old enough to take the throne, and it was Theodora that stepped in as regent of the Byzantine Empire, and she took it upon herself to end decades and decades of violence and anger across the empire by putting a stop to iconoclasm, by reinstating the teachings of the Seventh Ecumenical Council regarding imagery. Theodora is remembered as a protector of icons, as a righteous woman, and she is often depicted in icons in which she holds icons. All of this backstory leads us back into her personal copy of the Gospels, and what we see throughout the original pages of this text is that there are no icons. There are no pictures in Theodora's Gospel book. She probably had this book in public sight. She was writing it in sight of the emperor and the court, and so she couldn't put in there what she wished was there. And so centuries later, someone else added into this book for icons, the images she could never have had. Apart from one of them, an icon of Luke the Evangelist to replace the original lost one, the other three are matching in style and form and depict the Gospel writers in front of a lectern as they write the Gospels themselves. But the Gospels depicted in these little icons are written in gold ink upon purple parchment. This Gospel is an act of prayer for the Empress Theodora. She was writing this in an age in which Christianity was in conflict outside and around her. And now this text remains as this memory of this great woman. It is a reminder of her and of who she was and of her love and devotion for the scriptures and how important they are to the life of every single Christian. Because we have to understand that the real treasure of this work isn't the purple parchment and it's not the expensive lettering. It is in the very words and teachings of Jesus Christ. What Theodora's Codex should remind us of is that the words of Jesus Christ, the four Gospels, are worth more than their weight in gold. We're accompanying this episode with a very sophisticated type of tea. It is a pu'er tea that has been aged for 4 years. So it's got quite a complex and rich taste to it, and sort of appropriate for an episode about an empress. And it was a gift to us from my sister-in-law's godmother, so thank you very much.